Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very accomplished and respected leader from the social sector, Professor Somesh Singh. Professor Singh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Professor Singh is the co-founder of Craft Village. He is the former director and member of the National Institute of Apparel Management. He's an alumni of NIFT. He's headed NID's apparel design. He's amongst the renowned fashion and craft educators of the country, and he's been recognized, felicitated, and awarded globally. So, Somesh, tell me a little bit about your own journey before we come to Craft Village.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh ji, for calling me. And it's such a wonderful, feeling to be on world's largest podcast platform. What you were telling me, and that's fantastic. A lot of young people are, now listening to this conversation, and I'm sure that it will bring something insightful. So, as far as my journey is concerned, I'm a fashion design graduate from NIFT. Then I was in NID for 10 years as a professor. And then I became director of Institute of Apparel Management, and that was for 7 years. And then I started the present thing, which is called as Craft Village. So the journey is interestingly of course, getting educated in fashion design, then teaching and mentoring students into fashion design.
Yeah.
So almost 20 years in that, and then 7 years being into social sector, which is craft, and interacting with thousands and lakhs of people and families to understand the indigenous heritage and culture of India.
Fascinating. So what was your motivation to move from teaching and doing your own designs to starting Craft Village?
So frankly, it is not my motivation. It was my better half's decision.
Okay.
And I just came on board. And This is the sector, I frankly had no interest. I mean, fashion is too glamorous. Craft is non-glamorous, so transition from glamorous to non-glamorous, I was not able to imagine it.
Okay.
But she then decided that she has to build this, and work for the craftsmen of this country. So when I entered into this, then I realized that, like the photograph at your back, which is like, majority of Earth is ocean. The craft is also ocean of India. And with so much of diversity, so much of, cultural milieu to everything. I mean, everything is craft actually. And then when I started getting deeper into it, then I realized, I frankly, I was so myopic to think that this is not a great opportunity. This is not a great industry or a sector. But as I started meeting people, I can't tell you, then fully interested now. My entire thing.
I can imagine. You spent over 2 decades in the social sector with crafts. Tell me, how do you mobilize and empower the creative community and connect micro-entrepreneurs?
See, you used a word called microentrepreneurs, which is very right, because craft sector is full of microentrepreneurs.
Correct.
And every family unit is an organization, family unit, right?
Correct.
So husband does something, wife does something else, children also cooperate. Their family members also become part of this organizational setup.
Right.
So craft is basically a family organization, right? Which is the first thing. The second is that if you work with one craft person, you are actually working with, say, on an average 30 to 50 more. Because, he's going to go back and work with those 30 to 50 more. So employment to one or even opportunity to one means you are given opportunity to almost 30 to 50 more people.
Correct.
Right? So it has a chain reaction, that chain reaction kind of impact. So this way, when we started reaching out to, masters, then masters, they created a chain furthermore to their 50, 100 people who were working with them. So slowly, we built a network of around 100,000 craft person, across India.
Wow.
That's massive. That's massive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But now when you look at the crafts, the masters and people in different kinds of crafts in our country, one of the general impressions that I carry is that they don't get the true value of the work they do. I would love to get your perspective on this.
You're 100% right, but problem is I think there is a very catch-20 situation here, because first of all, artisans don't know how to command well.
Correct.
Because they are coming mostly from rural setting, right? And in urban setting, you have a brand. You also use the brand called you. So brand. So brand is what fetches you a better value. So the first point is that the urban and rural disconnect was so much that actually, people could not really identify with those products, those, items, those things which they were producing. So hence, most of them perceived it as a decorative item. That is one. Second is all credit to, our NGOs who have definitely been doing a lot of, works in social sector. But if you keep on asking, as a donation, what perception are you going to build for a product? You'll build a product perception of mercy.
Correct.
So the point is, okay, I mean, mercifully you pay something and take something. I mean, that has been the, tragedy of this particular sector. So as a result, what happened is that's the perception, which people formed. And therefore they are not ready to give the value. So once they are not, if they persevere not for profit and they just want to do some, kind of, ahsan, so they will just pay like that. That is a big dilemma. So hence you are 100% right. This sector has this biggest problem of mercifulness, which is not acceptable because this is a trade, this is a sector.
Correct.
They are making for their livelihood and they are making fabulous products, which is timeless and invaluable actually. Right?
Absolutely. And Somesh, what role does Craft Village play in supporting and promoting the work being done by these artisans around the country?
So, when we started Craft Village, it was started on a very basic principle. The principle is that there are two ends to, to anything, front end and back end. We realize that everybody is working back end. There's no brand, there's no retailing, there's no selling system, there's no up value. So customer as a result got disconnected. So we said that, what is the major thrust for Craft Village? That is training and promotion.
Right.
So we train people, which means not craft person, but the whole world, so that they understand the importance and value of craft and instill into their own, thought process that it is also equally important.
Right.
So we started training people and we trained around 40 to 50,000 people so far. They're all urban population.
Okay.
From IS officer, doctors, engineers to professors to everybody, who've been trained on different, value of craft. And the second was promotion. We started India Craft Week because the problem was that there was no platform which actually, help up market. I mean, craft persons' dilemma is, you'll always find them displaying on the road or displaying on the, table.
Correct.
I mean, their products, they also need to be curated in a, better manner.
Absolutely.
So we realized that, okay, paintings need to be curated as a gallery. Product needs to be curated as, how the store would look like. Textiles will be curated as how the textile store will be. So that, people start instilling on building those perceptions in terms of value. So we started building value, for which we did, this India Craft Week, and we work for the promotion. And you won't believe this has become one serious platform where today artisans directly meet with buyers and do a lot of business. So that was the whole idea.
Amazing. And I've spoken to many people who support the kind of work you are doing. And one of the challenges that they have always faced with a lot of our artisans is the supply chain. If someone has made a commitment that I will deliver 10 pieces on so-and-so date, they may not arrive on time. How do you handle such a diverse range of artisans and make sure that the products arrive on time?
You hit the nail, I mean, how come you really, found out such key issues? So it's incredible. There are two key issues, right? If you treat them like a vendor, you will get into the problems which you were talking about.
Correct.
If you treat purely like a vendor, order de diya, and then, you just wait, and wait, they will deliver one day.
Absolutely.
It doesn't happen that way. You have to treat them like a partner.
Okay.
And your own, unit.
Hmm.
So suppose if your partner, right, or your own unit, how would you help them to develop those kind of, functioning insights? See, it's not their problem. They are not exposed to such kind of a setup,
Correct.
which we call, for example, as an assembly line production, which happens all over the world. They are not, introduced to, suppose they have to make, I mean, they are making 10 pieces a day, and you are asking them to make, say, 30 pieces, increase 3 times productivity.
Right.
To also guide them. It's possible, I mean, recently we were on a visit to a village in Odisha, and that's exactly we talked about that how through creating an assembly setup, you can do your productivity in almost 2 to 3 times more, and it is possible, So that is the thing which is there. So
And
so
please go ahead.
yeah,
Please go ahead.
yeah,
Please
sure.
go ahead.
So the point here is what you're saying is very right. So my appeal to all the companies, all the people who are giving orders is very simple. Do not treat them like a vendor. Treat them like a partner and help them grow, help them understand how you can increase the productivity.
How wonderful. How wonderful. My next question is that, you spoke a little bit about branding and display, whether it is art, whether it is, any other piece of work that has been done, you got to curate it well so that the customers are able to see it. My question to you is, Somesh, what goes into building a strong handicraft brand? And you have created it for Craft Village.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh ji. The first most important thing is you need to have ethos in place. Because, I mean, are you really authentic? Question. I mean, not in the hold of, doing expensive and mindset or, doing too much of products. You are exploiting craft. You have to understand that what realistically you can achieve.
Correct.
Point number one. Point number two, are these craft coming from a certain lineage? Because then only you get the design language which has been in existence for thousands of years. Right. So you cannot, I mean, look at de-alienating that from the lineage. So look at that. That is point number two. Point number three is educate customers. Customers are very much interested in stories. They are not just interested in products. So how the story of each product is reaching to them, through what medium, through what way, so that, they start building a certain value. Fourth point is, world is talking about slow, sustainable, organic, circular. Craft does that for thousands of years. Any Indian craft you pick up, it has these 4 or 5 components inbuilt into it. So golden time for everybody. I mean, just talk about a simple product with all these things, you will have it. So this is fourth. And the fifth is, you have to make sure that, they are able to deliver quality in time and in right pricing. Right. So if you are able to look at from front to back end, you will do wonders. And last thing is, do not help them design.
Okay.
I mean, ask them to do things themselves. Then only they are artisans. Otherwise, they'll become artisanal laborers. And we don't want them to become artisanal laborers. We want to become, we treat them as artisans who has their own creativity coming into the process.
Very interesting. I was also speaking to somebody else, and one of the things that this person who's working in a specific sector of crafts, he told me that as a result of their intervention and support, and exactly what you said, treat them like partners, a lot of young next generation people who had started to leave have come back to the same craft. Are you also experiencing something similar?
That is correct. Because if they find, worth, I mean, see, 2 things only attract people.
Correct.
Right? Let's talk about new generation, money and fame. If these 2 things are missing in anything, why should they be getting attracted to it?
Correct.
So if they see that their families now started to get fame, recognition, and they also start a decent amount of money, they say, oh, this is a lovely work, why should we, I mean, leave it and go and do something else? So it is completely right. And we have seen that, those artisans who have started to earn very well, their kins have started, coming in. So that's not a problem. Absolutely right.
Very interesting. You just mentioned that you're giving a lot of the artisans a voice and the ability to earn. Can you give me some interesting examples of how, your support has actually turned around the fortunes of families?
Okay. So I'll give you many examples, but I'll give you one example because we have limited time. So one pashmina, for example, right? Shawl is a dyeing craft. The reason is very simple. I mean, we have one artisan family which is called Mir family in Kashmir. So earlier they used to work with 800 looms. Now they have 80 looms.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, 1/10 almost. Now, the reason is demand, lack of demand.
Correct.
So when we met them, we said, what is the problem? They said, shawls nobody buys. Winter is also shrunk. So nobody is buying, so we are not producing it. We said, okay, now let's try that. Can we convert this shawl into a product? They said, हमने कभी try नहीं किया. We have never tried, but we can try. So we got 2 shawls. We gave to NIFT and Pearl, in good institutions, and asked them to do conversion, one into a garment, one into a couch.
Okay.
Both of them came back and said not possible because you try to stitch, it gets torn. Because it's world's finest fabric. Kashmir.
Yeah.
We went back to Kashmir. We told them that you have to think of something because this has to be treated as fabric also. Correct. If you want to really increase demand. So his grandfather, he said, we used to wear garment in 50s.
Yeah.
Made out of pashmina.
Wow.
And they then started to basically, he recalled the technique and he revived the technique which was lost 60 years back.
Wow.
In the process, if we didn't have probe, they would have actually, revived that technique. So they created 5 meters of fabric. Half of that was converted into garment. Half of that was converted into couch. One Japanese buyer came at India Craft. She bought 100,000 meters of that fabric.
Amazing.
And which he's been producing for last 3 years. Still, continuing that order. And what is the feedback which came from one of the clients in Germany? It helped me save energy.
Wow. Wow.
So look at, a craft from Kashmir into climate change. So, so this is the kind of impact. So, he's earned incredible. He's busy all across the year. So this is what, and we look at it. We didn't intervene in design. Let him make the fabric. We'll only use into end application.
Right. Amazing. What an amazing story. What a minute. So I've got time for a few more questions. My next question to you is that for someone who came out of NIFT, headed NID's apparel design unit, came into the social sector, and your early years must have been a challenge. I want to ask you, what have been some of your challenges and your learnings as you have scaled up Craft Village?
See, the biggest challenge is that nobody wants to support this sector. Let's be very honest. The moment you go to and tell them that you do craft, because of the impression of not-for-profit, asking for donation and all that jazz, they'll just say, don't waste our time. So I have seen so much of denial, from everybody, that I realized that, okay, it's interesting to see that, people say no. There was a very interesting, story where I remember, it was a saying for one of our directors at NID that, you enter his office, so he will say, whatever your question is, my answer is no.
Okay. Right.
So it's the same situation here, that whatever, where you want to talk anything, they will say no. And first, I remember I had, when we started in 2015, October, November, I wrote 350 mails. And you won't believe, Ashutosh ji, nobody replied on a single mail.
Wow.
And those people are now today writing to us constantly to become partner or to be part of it. Why do you do this?
Correct.
Just be courteous enough to reply to mail.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Craft Village has also been declared a national entity by the World Crafts Council. What does this recognition mean for you as a co-founder and for the artisans in general of our country?
Basically, Ashutosh ji, national entity is the organization that represents India globally. That's the definition of it in World Craft Council. And World Craft Council is like UNIDO, UNDP, WHO, these organizations for craft, World Global Organization. And the only national entity in World Craft Council was Craft Council of India, which was for so many years.
Correct.
But because, we worked and we created a global outreach for craftsmen, and not only in India, but for all the global, craft persons.
Okay.
To have exchange with each other, which was not happening before. I mean, so World Craft Council, the board became so happy, and they said, this is the fastest growing organization we have seen globally. And then they created a special position for us to become the national entity from India.
Amazing.
Which means we represent now India into the World Forum of World Craft Council.
Wow. Congratulations. That's
Thank
amazing.
you so much, Ashutosh.
Amazing. Very, very proud of you. And my last question to you, Somesh, which is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your amazing journey as a designer, as the co-founder of Craft Village, what would you say are 3 lessons you want our young viewers and listeners to take away from your own journey and from our conversation?
This is really incredible, So, so the first lesson is that whenever you will try to do something different, you will face challenges, you will face denial, and you will face a lot of resistance. Right? That is the first lesson. So, but the point is, do not get disheartened. And believe in your dreams, which everybody says. So I'm also saying, because that also I've experienced. Point number 2 is, once you grow, remember, where you were. I mean, you should not become like somebody else that you don't even care, start caring about, people. Remember that, as I was telling about my mail experience, that nobody replied to my mail. But if I've grown today, if anybody writes to me, I should reply back to them. Right? So I should learn something from that and be modest. That is point number 2. Point number 3 is explore your own culture and tradition.
Wonderful.
It has so much knowledge, so much insight. It has so much, which is not talked about anywhere in textbook or on Google. And once you discover that, you create a completely new genre of new language.
Wonderful.
A new knowledge.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
So that is my
fabulous.
That is my 3
fabulous.
lessons.
And on that note, Someshji, and your 3 wonderful lessons, you will face challenges, denial and resistance. Don't get disheartened. The second one was, once you grow, remember where you were, which means stay grounded. And
absolutely.
The third one is explore your own culture, which I think you have done very, very admirably in Craft Village. Thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your own journey, about Craft Village, about all the work that you are doing. Thank you also for sharing with me the story of the Peer family, where you seem to have changed the fortunes just by giving new ideas. And I'm sure you will continue to do that for many, many artisans who are associated with Craft Village. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much, Ashutosh. Real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.